Welcome back, everybody. I'm Travis with Linux Academy. In this lesson, we're going to learn more about the Docker Compose file. Typically, a compose file is called docker-compose.yaml. If you want to use a different file name, you're going to need to go and use the F flag and then specify the name of the file. Compose files are typically YAML, but we do have the option of using JSON as an alternative. Let's go ahead and get started. Start off by cding into the compose directory. We're going to go and clone the weather app repository, and we're going to call it weather-app. cd into weather app, and then execute a git clone checkout compose. In this directory, we have a Docker file along with our source code. Let's go and take a quick look at the Docker file. The contents of this file should not be new to you. These instructions we've used in the multi-stage build lesson, and Docker Compose is going to use this file to go and build the weather app image for us. Now go and exit out of the file. Now that we're done looking at the Docker file, let's go and create the compose file. Execute vi docker-compose.yaml. The contents of the compose file can be found in the description of this video. The Docker Compose file has 4 types of top-level keys. There's version, services, networks, and volumes. The version key is mandatory. This is going to go and define the compose file format. Now the version of compose is tied to the version of the Docker engine. We're going to be using 3.0 right here, which is usable for 1.13 plus. Which means that's going to be compatible with the rest of these versions of the Docker engine. We are currently running 18.06, which means that we can go and pin it to 3.7 if we really want to, but if we want to make our Docker Compose file to be compatible with other versions of the Docker engine, it's just easier to leave it as 3. The services top-level key is where we're going to go and define out our service definitions, and each of these service definitions is going to represent a container that is going to be built as part of the application. And the name of the service will be part of the actual container name unless we go and specify something different. Now in the web app service, I have a build option, which is going to go and use the Docker file, which I showed you earlier. And I do this by specifying the context. This is where we go and define the directory that the file is in. I'm just using a period because it's in the same directory as the compose file. Optionally, if my Docker file was named something else, I would use the Docker file option and then specify the name of the file. And because our Docker file does have arguments, ours can take an array of key value pairs. I do this by specifying a dash, the key, and set it equal to the value. In this instance, I have an argument called version, and it's being set equal to v2.0. Next, we go and define our publish ports. I'm going to go and map port 8081 over to port 3000 on the container. And again, ports can take an array of mappings. Finally, we have the environment option. This allows us to go and set up environment variables for our container. And we go and define this by using a dash, followed by the key, and we're setting it equal to the value. For this particular container, we have the node env environment variable, which is being set to production. This is a very simple compose file. All it's going to do is just create a single service, and we're going to be building from a Docker file. So I'm going to go and save and quit. Okay, now that we're done building our compose file, let's go and bring our services up by executing docker compose up, and we'll be using the D flag to go and run our services in the background. And execute docker compose ps to go and list our services, and as you can see here, here is our weather app. So weather-app_weather-app_1 is the name of the service. I don't like it. It's kind of clunky. So let's go and rename it. Use the container name option to go and name the container. For the weather app, I'm going to call it weather1. Now I'm going to go and exit out of the file, and then we can rerun docker compose up. And this is going to go and rename my container. Let's go and list the services. And as you can see, the container is now being renamed to weather1. Now, there's a couple more things I want to talk about before we complete the lesson. First off, let's go and test to make sure that the application is working right by executing curl on localhost and port 8081. We are getting HTML back, so everything is working. If we go and make changes to our Docker file, we need to make sure it gets rebuilt before executing a Docker Compose up. And this is where the Docker Compose build command comes in. So let's go ahead and execute it. As you can see, it's going and rebuilding the image. It is using cache layers. However, I can go and bypass the cache layers by using the no cache flag, just like when we go and do a Docker image build. And this build will take longer because we're no longer using any of those cache layers. Okay, that's all there is to it. This covers the basics of creating a Docker Compose file. We'll dig a little bit deeper in the next lesson as we start working with volumes and networks. Go ahead and mark this lesson complete.